Dominique Strauss-Kahn has resigned as managing director of the IMF with immediate effect. In a statement to the IMF's executive board, he also firmly denied all the allegations that he made against him. Straus-Kahn will make a fresh bid for freedom later this Thursday. He's offered new bail terms, including house arrest in New York. And for more on Dominique Strauss-Kahn's resignation, I'm joined on the phone by Charles Adams. He's a former official at the IMF. Charles, good morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Good morning.
Charles,
Good morning.
I suppose it shouldn't come as a great surprise that he's resigned.
No, and I think especially in light of U.S. Treasury Secretary Geithner's recent comments, the timing is not a surprise. It's a very sad event, but I think it's clear that the managing director had to resign. And now, of course, the IMF has to move to the process of selecting a new head.
And who would you support as the next head of the IMF, Charles?
Well, actually, what I put the focus on is the process for selecting the head. We've had a situation now since the IMF was created in which the Europeans have regarded it as their right to select the head of the IMF. What I would like to see is a shift towards an open, transparent, and merit-based process. And if we have that, I think we'll be moving forward a lot. And we know there are candidates from Europe and elsewhere who are out there, and I think what we've got to see is that process seeks to pick the best available candidates.
But do you think, Charles, that the IMF will head that way towards a more open, transparent process? I mean, you know the machinations of the IMF. I mean, is that path possible?
It is possible. I think if one looks back 10 years, the IMF was already talking about moving towards this more open process. The G20, in fact, in the communiques, had expressed support for an open, transparent process. So it certainly is possible, but as you, of course, know, the Europeans are, I think, effectively suggesting that while they support openness over the medium term, they would prefer to have a European in the short term. I think that would not be a good idea. But
do the Europeans have a point then? I mean, most of the issues globally now focus on Europe, on those periphery European countries. So does it not make sense to still have a European as head of the IMF?
Well, I think not, for two main reasons. Number one, the IMF is a global institution, and the new leader of the IMF is going to be appointed for a 5-year term and is going to have to deal with problems around the world. And point number two, if we applied this logic that because the current issues are in the euro area, it should therefore be European, I mean, how would we apply that in, for example, the context of the Asian financial crisis or the IMF's involvement in Africa in the 70s? I don't think it's a good argument. But having said that, I mean, one may well end up with a European candidate. The point is that one wants to have a process that seeks in principle to identify the best candidate based on skills, based on merit. And I don't think one should begin by narrowing the field down and saying it should be a particular nationality for a particular reason.
Charles, thank you for joining us today. Charles Adams there, former IMF official.